So let's get started. Again, welcome everybody. We are so excited that you decided to join us today. We have some amazing content in store for you. We are thrilled to see right now over 200 attendees on the call today from companies all over the country who are all offering Virta as a fully covered program. I am Alyssa, and I am going to be your host for today's webinar. So, if you've ever tried to lose weight, manage your blood sugar, or feel better in your body and thought, why is this so hard? You are in the right place. A lot of people come to Virta after trying diets, counting calories, or relying on willpower, only to feel hungry, frustrated, and unsure about what to do next. So, today we're starting with a different idea. You didn't fail diets, diets failed you. This conversation is not about blaming yourself or trying harder. It's about understanding how food, hunger, energy, weight, and blood sugar are all connected together, and how the right support can make change feel more doable. Before we dive in, we want to give you a quick time to learn more about Virta while we chat today. You'll see this QR code a few times throughout the session. You can scan it now to see if you're eligible for Virta through your employer or your health plan. It is free to check, and starting an application does not mean that you're committing to enroll. It's just the first step to see what's available. And if you're here with a spouse or a dependent in mind, they may be eligible too, depending on your benefit. So please feel free to share the link with them after today's session. Let's pause here for a moment so you have some time to scan the code or click the link in the chat. Great, let's keep moving. So, what we'll cover today, we'll start with why diets fail and what to do instead. Then we'll connect the dots between food, cravings, energy, weight, and blood sugar. We'll also talk about how Virta uses real food to support your metabolism, what Virta is and isn't, and how to apply for your fully covered program. We'll save time at the end for your questions, so please feel free to submit those as we go in the Q&A feature. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to our clinical expert, Dr. Stanley. Dr. Stanley, welcome.
All right. Thanks, Alyssa. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Really looking forward to the conversation today. Just as a brief intro, again, I'm Jeff Stanley. I'm an internal medicine and obesity medicine trained doc. I have been with Virta for about 10 and a half years. And prior to that, worked as a primary care doc and hospitalist. And wear a number of different hats. I work as a medical director, but also continue to treat our patients all across the country and see these really amazing improvements. And really, I've had a long-term interest in health and nutrition. And like a lot of folks, it sort of started with some of my own struggles where, went to college and gained the freshman 15 and then sort of blew past that and struggled like a lot of people with trying to exercise more and eat less and just found, I felt miserable, didn't work for me. And, for me personally, I figured out when I reduced my processed food and carbohydrate and sugar consumption, weight came off really easily and have been able to maintain that for a long time. And that led me to really be interested in diving into the research and found that there is a ton of research and scientific backing behind the approach that we use at Virta that we'll go into more detail on. And really started using it with my patients in my primary care setting, but found that I just wasn't able to offer the comprehensive support that people really need to change their life and to really change their health. So been able to do that with tens of thousands and beyond members at Virta, and really excited to share what I've found and what I've heard from my patients over the years, but ready to dive in.
We're so glad you're here. So, to kick our conversation off, can you share why weight loss and energy feel so hard?
Yeah, I mean it's something that really, I've seen people struggle with over time. Certainly, again, saw it in myself, and I think a lot of that is really that you're kind of fighting against your body's biology. We know that the body resists losing weight, and then when you've lost weight, it tends to, make it hard to maintain the weight loss. You get hungry, you get tired, you get that hangry feeling that we all have experienced. So that is, definitely something that I think I've seen a lot of my patients struggle with over time. And I think if we look on the next slide here, you can see this diet cycle that so many people get stuck in. And it starts with really positive and good intentions to get healthier, to lose weight, to not need medications. But it tends to follow kind of this vicious cycle where, again, you get motivated to get healthier. Start with restricting food. So I'm going to cut back on what I eat. I'm going to count those calories. Then you feel hungry, you feel hangry, you feel tired. And then the body fights back and you basically have those food cravings. And oftentimes, as many of us have experienced, the cravings aren't for the healthy foods, it's for the ice cream and the cupcakes and things like that. And so, what that can basically lead to is you have that drop in energy. You're dealing with those cravings. Most of us give in, and then the results stall and you get frustrated. And then, many people eventually will start over. And I think, a lot of people have been on this cycle over and over and over again over the years. And trying to do this, without the proper support or without the proper nutrition advice, can be really hard, if not impossible.
It is so hard to feel hungry and hangry all the time. Agreed.
So, I think one of the big take home points that I have seen over the years and that I truly believe, and I've told patients time and again, is really it's not your fault. It's not about willpower. Things like hunger and cravings are again, this biological response. Our body wants to avoid losing a lot of weight. It wants to avoid starvation. We see that blood sugar changes can really affect energy and appetite. So again, when you're really focusing on eating less and exercising more, you're going to have drops in your blood sugar. That's going to cause those cravings to want to eat those higher sugar or unhealthy foods. Again, feeling hungry all the time is really one of the more miserable feelings. And it's really hard to sustain. You can push through it for short periods of time, but it's really something that is, again, almost impossible to do day in, day out for long periods of time. And so the goal and what we aim to support on is to work with your body and not have to really fight against it.
I love how the program supports how your body actually works. That's really key.
Yeah, so I want to dive in a little bit more on the power of nutrition. And again, this is something I saw in myself. I saw as a primary care doc, and then I see, every day now working with my Virta members. And really with the power of nutrition, the things that we see is that small changes can really affect the whole system. So, again, whether you're ready to jump into the deep end, really make large changes, or whether you want to start with incremental changes, our team can support that. So with the help of health coaching and the help of a licensed doc on your team or provider, and by monitoring, things like blood glucose, your weight, what foods you're eating, hunger and cravings, mood and energy. We've seen that these things are all sort of interconnected. And when you fuel yourself with the right nutrition, we see improvements across the board here. And when your body's well supported with the right nutrition, we tend to see more steady energy, fewer cravings, so it's easier to make that next good decision for food. We see better blood sugar support. When you have stable blood sugar, you have less of those hunger and cravings. You have more stable energy, again, able to make those ongoing good decisions for your health. And then also feeling fuller longer. So when you're feeling satiated, there's less of that, constant sort of feeling of hunger or thinking about food or food noise, as we're calling it now. And so by addressing that, again, it can really help to make these changes. And I think most importantly, to stick with them in the long term.
I think I speak for everybody when I say we are excited to learn more about this. Before we walk through what the program actually looks like, we thought it would be helpful to clear up a few of the biggest assumptions people tend to have about Virta. And honestly, these are questions we hear all the time. Things like, is this just keto? Am I going to be hungry? Is this something I'd have to figure out on my own? We'd love to hear from you first. You should see another quick poll pop up on your screen, and there's no right or wrong answer. We just want to understand what's top of mind for everybody joining us today. And they're in. Virta, let's see, I am still not sure what Virta actually is. Well, luckily you're in the right place. This is really helpful. And these are exactly the kinds of things we're going to talk through next as we talk about what Virta is and what it isn't. So let's talk about it. I think that this is probably one of the biggest questions people have coming into today's conversation. People hear nutrition-based program or lower carb approach, and they immediately wonder, okay, is this just keto? So Dr. Stanley, can you help us unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, we do use a focus on nutrition and a focus on, lowering those highly processed foods and the highly processed sugar and carbohydrates. But it's really a personalized and individualized approach that's based on, your particular health and the issues that you're facing, as well as your goals and done with support to be able to make these long lasting changes. And so we're able to support a wide range of dietary preferences. So again, whether someone might be vegetarian, pescatarian, vegan, whether there are, ethnic foods or in your family background, foods that you really enjoy, we can work with you on those. And, in some cases, either find substitutions or find foods that really align with an approach that will help you to get these outcomes. We do, in some of our patients or many of our patients, track blood ketones. And those are, are really an excellent tool to see if your body is burning fat. So, you've been on the treadmill and you see the fat burning mode, or, everybody wants to burn fat, but it oftentimes is sort of a guess whether are you actually burning fat or are you burning muscle or, are you just starving? And so it can be an effective tool to help figure out, is your body burning fat for energy? Are you reducing the sugars to a level where, your body is able to effectively burn fat, to effectively use those fuels to feel full and to get healthier? And so, again, this is something that is absolutely not a strict keto diet. Obviously, there's a lot of bad information out in the internet and other areas that kind of run the gamut with different diets, but we really use a scientifically proven method and with this monitoring, with the support, to help you achieve those health goals, and something that we really feel confident in.
It is so great that this program can fit anybody's needs, and it's helpful to know it is so much more than keto. So I think this is a big fear people have. And we've talked about this a little bit today. Am I going to be hungry all the time? Because for a lot of people, dieting has meant feeling consistently deprived and fighting cravings all day long. So what is the experience actually like for members?
Yeah, I mean, one of the, I think, things that often surprises people is that they can lose weight and they can improve their health or improve their diabetes without feeling hungry all the time or without feeling miserable or feeling deprived. And it's really a shift that we focus on with adjusting kind of more what you eat rather than how much. And so we see when people are getting enough protein, when they're getting healthy fats, when they're, reducing the processed sugars, it tends to help you feel full for longer. And then again, when it comes time for the next meal, it's easier to make a choice that's aligned with your goals. And again, I think an example of that many people have experienced is you have there's a donut in the break room and you have one and it tastes great, but then an hour or two later, you're tired, you're hungry again, and you're looking for the next snack. Versus if eat something like some nuts or some eggs for breakfast or things like that, it tends to have more sticking power. You feel full, you feel satisfied, and again, that's going to help achieve those goals. And one thing, again, we'll go into more of kind of the nuts and bolts of how Virta works, but through our app and through our health coaching and provider support, we'll be able to give you ideas of foods that you like, that you enjoy already, that align with our program, and then help to get new ideas to keep it fresh. But again, it should be something where you're enjoying the food, you're feeling relatively full, but you're still moving towards those goals.
For those of us who get hangry a lot, I think this is really critical information. So, even when people know what they want to change, I think another challenge is figuring out how to stay consistent in real life, especially when it gets busy. So, can you talk a little bit about the support side of Virta and what members actually experience?
Yeah, so I mean, again, when I was a primary care doc, I really made it a point to talk to all of my patients about nutrition, about exercise, about lifestyle changes. But what I found is that it just didn't have the time and resources to be able to support people in those daily decisions that tend to come up. And someone might be able to meet with a dietitian once or have a few group meetings, but that's just not enough for the realities of our busy day-to-day life where really you need this ongoing support. So we'll go into more detail in what this looks like in practice. But really, I think a lot of people have experienced when they try to make a change, they're trying to do it on their own, or they're trying to find resources online or through a book. But it's really necessary to have someone that you can ask, like, is this a good choice or is that a good choice? Or to be able to snap a picture of food and get the nutritional advice on it. And so that's a lot of where we focused is, not just on here's the overall sort of approach, but really how do you implement this for you personally?
It is so hard to feel like you have to take this on alone, and I think having a whole support team is amazing. I think that is also leading to this really important point that I know is critical for everybody today. For a lot of people, the hardest part isn't just knowing what to do, it's trying to make changes consistently without support or guidance or a plan that feels realistic for everyday life. Now that we've talked through some of the biggest misconceptions, let's shift into what the Verta experience actually looks like. Dr. Stanley, can you walk us through what members actually receive when they join Verta and how the program's designed to support them day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw in the poll, obviously, this was kind of the biggest area that folks had a question. So we'll dive in here. And then again, as a reminder, we'll have some Q&A at the end to hopefully shine even more light on it. But at a high level, this Verta method with our personalized approach that's really focused again on nutrition first. So first of all, we have this medically supervised treatment. And I mentioned this, but when you enroll with Virta, you will have a licensed provider that's overseeing your care, reviewing your labs and medications and your ongoing progress and making sure that, you're safe and then also, achieving those goals, as well as an individual health coach that will be working with you on this daily basis. You'll have access to our app that has a ton of educational material, It has, we'll go into to more specifics later, but again, that ability to have a food log and to snap a picture of your food and get immediate feedback, as well as an AI assistant to get immediate answers to questions. This ongoing guidance and support is really tailored to your lifestyle. And so again, you can let us know or we'll ask questions about things like, your food budget, or, you might live in a food desert where you don't have easy access to traditionally healthy food. We have a lot of experience there and we can help you to figure out what works for you. Your clinical profile. So again, during that enrollment period, we're reviewing your medical history, your labs, your medications, and tailoring the approach to your specific scenario. Also, again, tailoring it to what you like to eat. So we're not going to, if you hate broccoli, we're not going to tell you to eat broccoli. We can give you a lot of alternatives or things that, again, you enjoy. And then really, kind of meeting you where you are in terms of when you're ready to start. So are you ready for a big change? Are you ready for a small change? And then how do we move along the line there? Everybody gets a connected scale, a connected meter, as well as again access to the app and your health team. And then really we have this focus on trying to make it easy for you. So let's say you are, a bit of a road warrior or traveling a lot and don't have, easy access to say a Whole Foods or gourmet food, right? So if you need to go swing by Taco Bell, we can give you options that, aren't as loaded with all the sugar and carbohydrates, but still taste great. Or if you need a pick me up in the afternoon and go to Starbucks, rather than going for the caramel macchiato you see here that's got a lot of sugar in it, there are some delicious alternatives like a iced Americano with some sugar-free syrup that again can sort of give you that kick, but not have all the added sugar and other unhealthy additives.
This is such a comprehensive program that's really built for your real life.
So jumping in here, just wanted to kind of give a real scenario, that we see pretty often in terms of some of the easy shifts that you might make initially, and then some areas where if you want to see further improvement, you can move towards. So this is a really common breakfast before Virta. Again, this was my breakfast growing up, and things that we're sort of traditionally told are pretty healthy. So maybe some oatmeal, cereal, some fresh squeezed juice, and maybe some low fat or skim milk. And what I found and what a lot of people find is that, again, an hour or two later, they're starting to feel hungry again. Don't really feel that energy or feel like yourself, and your weight's increasing. So that can feel really frustrating when you're putting in the work, when you're, following the guidance that you've been given in the past, and you're not seeing the results that you're looking for. So let's say you love oatmeal, it's been a staple for years and doesn't feel like breakfast without it. So you can start off with, let's say you keep the oatmeal, and maybe reduce some of the sugar that you're adding to it. Add some, other toppings that are higher in protein and lower in sugar. And then, have a couple of eggs with that. So that's going to have some of that sticking power, where you've got some protein, you've got some healthy fats, and you might start to notice that you're not quite as hungry for lunch, or, you can work through lunch and grab a snack if you're really busy. And then if you're ready, and again, this may be right away, or this may be further down the line, you can make something really tasty like a sausage and spinach omelet. If you hate spinach, don't have to have that, can add something else instead, like mushrooms or really anything, that you want that you can talk with your coach about. And then we start to see things like, the energy improves, less brain fog. And then some of the more concrete improvements, like your lab work is getting better, your A1C's gone down, your cholesterol's improved. Those are all things that I see all the time.
Well, hopefully this gives everybody a bit of breakfast inspiration. And it's just so hard to go to the grocery store and see those healthy foods and not know what to pick. So it feels like you can get a lot of support here, which is great.
Absolutely. And then, just diving in with a bit more detail. And again, I've touched on some of this already, but I think these are really helpful to highlight. And, really at the foundation, the goal here is to give folks support for when those decisions actually happen. So those decisions don't happen in the doctor's office, or they don't happen, during that short visit with the dietitian. It's when you're out to eat. It's when you have a party coming up, or you're in the grocery store, walking down the aisles. So we can help with, things like personalized meal plans, so a shopping list, ideas for recipes, or again, if you're going out to eat, our coaches can take a look at, snap a picture of the menu and give you an idea of, okay, here's 4 or 5 things that would be a good option. So you can work off that meal plan. We also have our nutrition checker where you can, snap a picture of some food or a menu or nutritional advice, and, get some feedback on, here's how many carbohydrates are in it. Here's how much protein. Here's how much fat. Here's a simple change you could make. So, for a cheeseburger, it might be something like maybe initially, take off part of the bun, or try a lettuce wrap over time, or try a different option. And then you've got your health coach to be able to send these questions to check back after you went out. And let's say it wasn't easy and you had very little control over the menu or over what was ordered. That's fine. We're not there to shame or blame. The idea is to say, okay, let's create a plan for next time so that you can, achieve the goals you're looking for.
I love how you can use the app to answer questions in the moment. It is such a helpful feature. I have also met Coach Adon, and he's lovely.
Yeah, I've worked with Coach Adon for years, actually. And then I just wanted to highlight a real world example of what our patients, tend to see. And, this is a real testimonial from a patient, Rebecca, from Indiana University Health Plans. One thing that is kind of fun and really come full circle is that Virta started with a clinical trial, and it was just started when I joined, more than 10 years ago. And it was done in conjunction with Indiana University Health and their clinics. And we showed really amazing outcomes. And so over time, the health plan there has offered Virta as an option to their patients to be able to recreate some of the great health improvements we saw in the clinical trial, but again, in the real world. And, what Rebecca talks about here is that, she was looking to lose weight and for a type of program that was sustainable for me to keep the weight off. And Virta's really been that program for me. So she lost 40 pounds, been able to sustain the lifestyle change to keep the weight off. And I would just highlight the kind of the second portion of that. So, I mean, again, I've seen some of my patients lose 40 pounds, 50 pounds, even hundreds of pounds. But keeping it off is really what we're looking for. And so we're teaching you how to make these changes, but in a way where you can do this as a lifestyle and not as a crash diet. We really would have failed you if it's just a crash diet and you go back to, prior levels of health or regain that weight. It's really about that sustainability and, feeling better and enjoying still what you eat.
This is such an inspiring story. So, if you're listening today and thinking, this sounds like something I'd like to learn more about, the good news is that getting started is simple. You can scan this QR code that's on the screen to check your eligibility and complete a short application. The application helps the Virta team better understand your health goals and figure out if the program is a good fit for you. Most importantly, checking your eligibility or completing the application doesn't obligate you to enroll. Your information is protected, it's HIPAA secure. And so if today's conversation is resonating with you, whether your goal is weight loss, improving blood sugar, having more energy, or just feeling better every day, we'd encourage you to take that first step and learn more about what Virta could look like for you. So we've covered a lot today, from why weight loss and blood sugar can feel so challenging, to how nutrition, support, and personalized care can help make healthy changes feel more sustainable over time. And hopefully we've also cleared up some of the biggest misconceptions people may have had coming into today's conversation. So we now know what Virta is and what it isn't, With that, I'd love to open things up for live questions. Dr. Stanley's here with us for the next few minutes, so if there's anything you're curious about, whether it's food, support, eligibility, medications, maybe what the program looks like day to day, how to get started, now is a great time to ask. And while we move into Q&A, you'll still see this QR code on screen if you'd like to check your eligibility or start your application. So let's see, we're seeing a lot of stuff come in. Couple of big themes popping up. Is it actually possible to reverse type 2 diabetes, or is it just something we have to manage for the rest of our lives? What are your thoughts, Dr. Stanley?
Yeah, really good question. I think traditionally over the years, type 2 diabetes has been considered to be sort of chronic and irreversible. And, that was more or less like what the American Diabetes Association said, or sort of the general teaching. And we've seen over the past decade or so a shift in that there's an understanding that, the signs and symptoms of diabetes can be reversed. You can bring blood sugar and A1C back to a normal level. I think it's important to note that it's not considered cured, but diabetes can be put into remission or reversed, where basically, you don't have any of the side effects or complications from diabetes. Blood sugar is normal. If you went to a new doctor and you didn't tell them you had diabetes in the past, they would, not be able to tell. I think the important thing is that, in order to stay in remission or to stay in reversal, that, it's important to maintain lifestyle changes. And that actually has been where like the medical societies and endocrine societies have shifted, that it is possible to be put in remission or reversed. But again, it has to be done with ongoing support.
All right, let's see. That was a great answer, Dr. Stanley. Thank you. A couple more questions have come in. How does this program work if somebody is already taking GLP-1s? I think that's a really big one for today.
Yeah, so GLP-1s, as folks may or may not know, have been medications that have been around since the early 2000s, and have obviously become a lot more popular over the last few years as new versions have come out. So things like Ozempic or Mounjaro for diabetes, or Wegovy or Zepbound for obesity treatment. And we have been working and I personally have been working with patients on these meds for the whole time. What we see is that it is possible, if folks are interested and motivated to, be able to come off these meds. And really what we focus on is first, getting the glucose and A1C and weight down, getting those to a normal range, getting those well controlled, and then, in working in conjunction with our patients, being able to stop those meds. We know not everybody's ready, so it can take time and ongoing support. But one of the things that we've seen is that whether it's a med like insulin or GLP-1s or other medications, it is possible to come off them. And we also have, some published data showing that when coming off the meds, that people can not only, maintain their weight loss, but they can actually lose additional weight. And that's pretty counter to what I think has typically been said or been shown in some of like the pharmaceutical company clinical trials, where people do tend to regain weight. But again, they do that in the setting of not changing what they're eating, just taking the med. And so when they stop the med, not surprisingly, the weight can come back.
Thank you. Yeah, again, I know that was a really hot button one for everybody today. So here's another really interesting one. Why is it so much harder to lose weight and control blood sugar after going through menopause?
Yeah, that's been a big topic of conversation, lately over the last few years. And I think it's really important that it's being recognized that, perimenopause, or that, period, or kind of surrounding that transition, and then, postmenopause, are times where, metabolism tends to change. There's differences in hormones, and a lot of women can tend to gain weight during that time or find it very difficult to lose weight. One of the things that we have looked at that in our members and actually report that back when we're looking at outcomes, and have actually seen that the weight loss in our perimenopausal and menopausal group is consistent with our broader patient population. So it doesn't look like it's impossible. In fact, it does look like it's very, very possible to do. Again, so a lot of it is like focusing on, you maybe have to make more shifts than you would have in the past. The same foods that you could eat in your 20s and 30s, no longer have the same effect, or can make it harder to lose weight. And so that's where the specific nutrition changes can be really effective. But I think it's been really good to see that it isn't a sentence that you can never lose weight. People can absolutely still lose weight, still get healthier, and maintain it.
Thank you. What an interesting answer and set of challenges. So I'm looking at a couple more questions that we have in the chat, and I think a good one to address. We have one attendee who's a vegetarian and is just wondering how easy or hard it's going to be to follow a plan with Virta.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of, personally, my patients that are vegetarian over the years, and also, across our patient population. That's something that's pretty common, and definitely something where you can still be successful, and we can support you. Again, it's looking at, what are the sources of protein that we're going to be aiming for. Again, whether that's tofu or tempeh or other options. Also, again, making sure what sort of sources of healthy fats you're going to be looking for. But we have menu ideas, recipes. I should also mention that there's a totally optional, but a patient community that people can join, where a lot of folks will share recipes, or, sort of dive in specifically to things like, how can I succeed if I'm vegetarian or vegan, or, like Latin cuisine, or whatever it is.
What a great question. So, something else, a big theme that I'm seeing popping up is we have a lot of folks who would love to think about joining Virta, but actually their partner is the one who does all the cooking and all the shopping. How would somebody like that work with their coach to make sure that they can still stick with the plan that they have?
Yeah, that's a pretty common obstacle that we've seen over the years. And, I think first and foremost, it can be really helpful just, in being honest, and talking with your partner, or your family members about why you're doing this. And so really saying, I'm looking to get healthier, or I'd like to control my diabetes, or I'd like to lose weight, and could really use, your support. We can provide those shopping lists and menu ideas to share with significant others. In addition, also some ways that you can make some slight modifications. So if you're cooking for a family, not everybody has to eat the same thing. You can have a little bit extra of the veggies on the side, a little bit less of the rice. So there are some kind of simple modifications that can be done. And we have some patients that frankly say, my spouse, or family is not supportive at all, and we can help to provide that support, or the ideas, or the ways to sort of navigate that situation. But we know it can definitely be a challenge.
Got it. And we're actually also getting a bunch of questions around what does the clinical team look like? What kind of team are you going to be interacting with when you're in Virta?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, when you join Virta, you will be paired and work with a care team that will be, your team on an ongoing basis. And these are Virta employees, so not contractors. You'll have your health coach, and in terms of, or in some cases, for certain medications, a registered nurse as your coach. And these folks are trained in our Virta nutrition, trained in, behavioral support and cognitive behavioral therapy, and the majority being registered dietitians, but also other areas of expertise like exercise physiology or clinical social worker, kind of depending on what obstacles you might be facing. And then you'll have a licensed provider that will be working with you on an ongoing basis. And again, those are all part of our medical team, licensed in the state where you live. And either so an MD, and we have internal medicine, family medicine, endocrinology. Our endocrinologist usually paired with our type 2 diabetes patients that are on insulin and meds like that. And then also a team of nurse practitioners that are working in collaboration with our MDs, and they'll be, helping to support you. So you'll know who your provider is, you'll know who your coach is. We have weekend coaches as well. So if you have questions over the weekend, they can support you. And really the goal is to get quick feedback on your questions, help close that loop so you're not, waiting weeks or months to get in with your doctor or get that question answered.
Yeah, thank you. We also are just getting questions about what the general experience looks like. Are you getting primarily messages during your time with Virta? What does your first clinical appointment look like? Can you provide a little more detail on that, Dr. Stanley?
Yeah, so it can be fairly different from what a lot of people have experienced with either your primary care provider, where again you're seeing them every 6 months or every year for a 10 or 15-minute visit where you've got to cover all aspects of health. In this case, most of the interaction is through our app, and we find that frankly most people really like that, and that they're kind of used to text messaging, they're used to interacting that way, and they can get an answer in the moment when they need it. We also do have the ability we can set up phone calls, video visits, as needed. And we have some people that really like those and do those regularly. Others who, can get that support through, more of the text base through the app. And then, in terms of that initial step, so, starting with entering some basic information to check eligibility, setting up that clinical intake call where you'll speak with one of our clinicians, go over your medical history, go over your goals, and get started with Virta. And then again, it's very much tailored to your life and what works best for you, kind of on an ongoing basis.
Thank you so much. I think that is all the time that we have for questions. But it looks like we have most of them, if not all, answered. And that's the perfect way to end the session. So before you go, we would really love your feedback. You should see a short poll pop up. So feel free to answer a couple of questions about the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Stanley, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to be here, to get curious about your health and proactive. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes to apply. So please feel free to join us in seeing if Virta is right for you.
Thanks so much, everyone.